right. So
Hey.
nice to see you. We're here. Another installment of the Honest Hour. No spin environment except me.
We're here to talk to you about all things real estate in the Denver metro area. It's on our agenda.
Today we are talking about foreclosure starts. That is a process in Colorado which is commenced after and a foreclosure. People get confused sometimes. Foreclosure is an event, but it's also a process, right? When your house is in foreclosure, there's been some period of time where you have not been paying your mortgage, and then there's a legal commencement of a process by which at the end of that process, if you have not solved the problem in other ways, it results in a public sale where at the end of it, somebody else owns the house, right? Either the bank or an investor.
Yep, I was going to say that somebody else can be the original bank that you borrowed from, or it can be a private investor that showed up to that trustee sale with the cashier's check to purchase the property.
Ready to buy it. So something we have been keeping our eyes on really closely is that is a public record when they actually legally commence that foreclosure process heading towards a foreclosure sale. And that public record document is called a Notice of Election and Demand, an NED, Notice of Election and Demand. So since the beginning of COVID, we have been keeping a very close finger on the pulse of those, because those are kind of a leading indicator of whether or not we have a big wave of distressed properties that are going to be entering the market for 6-12 months from now as a result of foreclosures. And Keith is our data guy on this issue. Tell us a little bit about what the trends have been in the commencements of these foreclosures for the past couple of years.
Yeah, so we roll back to the pandemic and those sorts of things. Obviously, we had the CARES Act that was put in place that had that forbearance allowance, which would designed to try and help people avoid the foreclosure process, effectively pausing their obligations on the mortgage payments, right? So no foreclosures were happening through that period. The people could stay into them for up to 18 months. So that really kind of carried us through the end of 21 and really into the beginning of 22, where banks were starting to get these folks out. They were trying to work out payment programs and stuff with them before sending them into the foreclosure process. We're starting to see that banks aren't being too successful in some of those workouts. And so there are, I would say, as of the last 4 to 6 weeks, I'm seeing somewhere between 70 and 90 foreclosure processes started. So the NED is getting filed on 70 to 90 properties per week in the state of Colorado.
So we're looking under 300 per month. That number is up certainly from a year ago. But you pulled some really interesting data on that.
So, when Rox was talking about that process, right? If it gets to the public trustee sale, so the seller or the owner hasn't cured that default either by coming into some money from family or friends, or selling an asset that allows them to then cure that default. Or the other option is they can always sell the property during that foreclosure time, the pre-foreclosure period before it gets to that public trustee sale. And then the proceeds from that sale would pay off, the outstanding principal plus late payments and fees and the foreclosure process costs. But if it gets through all of that and it actually makes it to that public trustee sale, the winning bidder at that trustee sale is issued what's called a certificate of purchase, or the COP, right? And that basically says, hey, Roxane, you are the winner of this auction. Right now, we're going to give you this document that says you have legal rights to this stuff, but there are periods for junior lien holders to come in and redeem it, meaning they would pay you, if you were that winner, what you bid on it, plus, their outstanding balance. And now they would get issued the certificate of purchase. And so they would have the right. So once it gets through all of those redemption periods, that's when the public trustee's deed is issued. And that's when the ownership is actually transferred from the previous owner borrower to that winning person that got the bid at that public trustee sale.
Right.
The interesting thing that I've been tracking there over that same time period, that 4 to 6 weeks, there's somewhere between 10 and 15 certificate of purchases that are being issued. So 70 to 90 foreclosure starts. And then 120 days later, there's only 10 to 15 that are actually being sold at the public trustee sale.
So less than 10%.
It's somewhere right around that number, right? So it's interesting. And then, there's some people that are out there, some buyers that are saying, well, I'm going to wait for these foreclosures to come hit the market, right?
Yeah.
That's great. But that only happens in the event that the bank was the winning bidder at those public trustee sales. As of last week, I looked at last week's numbers. There were 12 certificate of purchases that were issued. Of those 12, I can tell that there were 3 banks that were the winning bids that was there. There's a 4th that may fall in there. So roughly a third of the sales that actually happen are going to the bank. And again, these are statewide numbers, right? That's not just the Denver metro area. That's for the state of Colorado.
That's the whole state. And we had something like last week, low 90s, 91, 92 of these notices of election. The commencement started. We had 12 actual completed consummated sales off of that based on the certificate of sale. And then, the certificate of purchase. And out of those, only 3 of them were clearly bank-owned properties, right? So that's less than 3% going back to the bank. And that's certainly up from what the average has been. But if we take a look too at the actual closings that we've been seeing, we're still running at less than 1%, between 0.5% and 1%, even if that tripled, if we went up to 3% across, right?
For the month of February, there was 0.1% of the detached single family properties that in the Denver metro area that would be considered a distress sale. So that would be a foreclosure or a short sale. So 0.1% of the actual transactions that happened in the single family detached were distressed. 0.3% in the attached market for the month of February.
Which kind of brings me back to some of the previous conversations we've had on other segments of the Honest Hour, right? If we know that there were 12 sales, right? And we have, if the numbers are consistent, if we're looking at roughly a 10% sale rate, those other 90%, what are happening? Right? One would presume if it doesn't get to the sale where somebody else buys it, they are either selling it, right, to somebody else, or they are curing it, bringing in the monies to get current on it, right? One of those 2 things are happening. And if somebody hasn't made their mortgage payment for months and months and months, unless they were saving that money, right, the chances that they're going to have the funds at hand, granted, they've got the uncle, they've got friends, they've got family, they've got folks, there are some number of people who will have other resources and other ways of solving that problem. But I have to imagine that there's a large number of those that are entering into these type of scummy deals that we see, or who are selling the house for way below market value because somebody offers them a quick cash infusion when they really need it. Very interesting. We're going to continue keeping our eyes on this, but the long and the short of it is that we're not seeing a big wave of foreclosures. And if we look at what are our year over year numbers by way of appreciation, Keith?
Well, year over year, we're still seeing some appreciation. There's not a ton. It's not like we are back in, the 21, 22 years where we were seeing double digits appreciations, especially at this time of year, sometimes in the teens to upper teens. Now we're in the 3 to 5% range. So,
which is right where a normal trend line of appreciation is. So I know that right now it feels like we're losing values because we're not seeing double-digit appreciation, but the values keep going up. It's just slowed. So this increase in interest rates, whatever you think of them, it has had the effect of slowing down the increase of these prices. And as far as I'm concerned, that's ultimately a good thing for everybody, buyers and sellers alike. Because those sellers who are enjoying that huge appreciation, most of them have to turn around and buy into that same Hunger Games market. So us getting back into that 3 to 5% appreciation is a much healthier, much more sustainable. It keeps us out of bubble territory. So if you've got any questions on that, I know we live in an environment where you get so much white noise from every direction. I went on YouTube the other day and they were talking about these 10 markets are going to see 40% drops in value. Well, I'd love to see where your crystal ball is. The data is telling us something very different.
Yeah, we're still in an extremely constricted inventory environment. I mean, we're back to less than a month's worth of inventory that's active on the market right now. And in fact, the last couple of weeks, I'm seeing more houses go under contract that are coming on the market. So that constriction and the restriction of the supply is only getting worse, right? And so that's where that little bit of the appreciation is coming from. We don't have as many buyers that are out there right now. So, but for the darling listings that are out there, you're still getting multiple offers. You're still able to kind of command a lot of favorable terms for those sellers. But it's definitely, as we've talked before, has become more of a skill-based market.
That's
You
right.
need to have a realtor that understands how to operate, how to be able to pivot and shift depending on the trends that are happening in that moment, not what's behind us, but what's happening now. So you got questions, we're more than happy to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with you. We'll look at your specific geographic area and be able to tell you, hey, this is a hot area, or this one's suffering a little bit, so we can't be as aggressive with your pricing. But the reality is there are buyers that are out there. And if you're a seller, we can absolutely help you connect your listing with those buyers and get you the most money possible.